Hi, and welcome to Realty Trust Services. As someone in maintenance, this video is for anybody that might be, whether you're a senior maintenance technician, a maintenance technician, a maintenance apprentice, or someone else in maintenance in some kind of field role. And I wanted to start with the fact that next to our company logo, you will always see the phrase growing prosperity. So if we're going to start together, there has to be kind of a common understanding of what are we even going for, and is this a fit? So I would assume that if you're working for us or you're starting work with us, that we've had some conversation, but I think that even moving forward, you always have to continue to evaluate for yourself, how is this working out? And why am I here, right? And so our intention, and I won't say that this is always 100% actualized, it's made real, but our intention, you can see right in the logo here, growing prosperity. Like, the intention is that we would see every member grow in prosperity. And what does that mean? Growing should be clear enough, right? There's different ways to grow. And growing prosperity is not just about money. It is true that the more that you exchange value via the labor, and not just the intensity of your labor, but the way that you're able to use this right here to create value with your labor, okay? There is an exchange given back to you, okay? And so that does grow your financial prosperity. But to be quite honest, there's a number of people that make a lot of money, and they're not prosperous, okay? And let me explain that. So some of my highest paid workers in the past, they had significant substance issues. And whether you have a substance dependency or you have an electronic dependency or any other dependency, when you have an addiction, you cannot be prosperous, right? Because you are a slave. You are a literal slave. You serve that addiction, and that addiction dominates you to the point where there is no value left in your life, no matter how much money you make, right? Because it will eventually destroy the things that are most important to you, or at least destroy your enjoyment of them, okay? So the way I see it is that when you're growing prosperity, you're growing prosperity. Your intention is to practice, and think of it like a professional sports athlete, right? They all have coaches. The best athletes have many coaches. They have coaches for each individual part of their game. They have personal coaches that make sure they sleep right. There's sleep coaches. There's the defense coach, the offense coach, this coach, that coach, right? And so, though you may not have coaches for every individual part of your life that literally look at everything and analyze every movement you make, then you go back. Ultimately, you have to take responsibility for being your own coach. A lot of it has to do with changing how you think, being more self-accepting, self-loving, things of that nature. But it is also fundamentally about practice, okay? Identifying what's important and practicing. Thus, the pro, because you're serious about being better at what you do. And so, especially in this job, you won't always have somebody next to you. More often than not, you won't. You have enough rope to hang yourself, okay? We'll say that. There's nobody saying don't hang yourself, right? Like, you have freedom, but I also see a lot of people, they think I have freedom, that means I have no accountability. The accountability tends to not be instant, right? So at some point in time, it tends to be like, you're doing this, doing that, doing this, and you're not really thinking about the value you're providing. That's your responsibility. I can't always explain to you that's not what you're doing may not bring value, or more, may bring value, right? But you have to think, man, is this bringing value? And be able to have a conversation about that, right? Because ultimately, prosperity tends to be created with other people and other organizations, how you relate, right? But also how you relate to yourself first. It always starts inside and then outside, right? And so you're practicing with yourself. You're practicing leading yourself, finding your own best rituals and practices in your personal life that then allow you to bring energy and consciousness to everything you do, right? Which then brings you money, which is also energy, allows you to have a personal life afterwards, right? Which then gives you more energy to go back, right? And the more that you become a conscious person, suddenly things aren't acting on you. You're aware of them and you're varying, you're choosing, you're wise. You're able to say, you know what? The relationship in my personal life is not serving me. And you're not addicted to it, right? You know it's not working and you're like, you just can't seem to leave. That's not, instead you're taking every part of your life, making sure that that's energizing you and feeding to the next part. And you use the energy from the one part of your life that is working to then help you in the part of their life that maybe is not working as well, right? But ultimately, it all comes from you being conscious and no longer a slave, okay? A slave of anything or anyone, right? There's a difference between slavery and conscious choices to serve. You're going to do one or the other, right? You have to have a purpose. And if you don't, the parts of you, the many thousands, millions, billions, and trillions of parts, the cells, everything has to combine for a single purpose. And the only purpose that seems to really motivate people is a true sense of service. For something, a bigger purpose outside of themselves, right? And people who don't have purpose, they won't be able to serve anybody, right? And they're probably going to be low skill longer term. Even if you have higher skill, that skill's not going to bring much value, right? And so there is a difference between intelligence, by the way, and skill and wisdom. I choose wisdom because I will likely increase my intelligence and skill being wise. Wisdom comes from the heart, right? And the heart tends to be the thing that organizes the being, the whole self, right? So when I talk about growing prosperity, that tends to be thought of as money, but I'm really talking about being a better, a higher level person, that the company would see the people benefit in every way, all the way around, right? And that you would be able to participate in that and benefit. Now, as a company, there are things that we're good at and perhaps things that we're not as good at, right? And that we'll just be honest that anywhere you go is going to have its pluses and minuses. And some of those pluses and minuses may align with your needs or disalign, depending on what you want. And you have to be smart about that. Decide, like, is that a fit for you? But what I would say is the things we are good at is we're a technology company. We have stable work. We're willing to let you mess up. That doesn't mean we're willing to allow people to be jackasses. Okay, and there's a difference. One is you sincerely wanted to provide value, but you didn't see things quite need to, so you get another chance, right? The jackass is when you knew that it was a stupid idea, you showed bad faith, and you did it anyway because you didn't care, right? That's jackass. And you don't always see, like, if I'm not next to you, I can't see that you're a jackass. I'm not assuming anything about you because I don't know you, okay? But I'm just saying, if you are a jackass, like basically somebody that's a deeply not really a good person and doesn't have positive intentions for everything that they do, what we'll see is we'll see at first like, oh wow, that didn't work out the way we wanted to, right? And then a coaching conversation will not work. So a conversation like, wow, what's going on? What can we do? And it is just you'll see multiple lines of bad performance, and you will show yourself for who you are over time. So as a manager, I don't typically make snap decisions. A lot of people think I don't catch anything, but I know a lot more. I'm not quick to decide what it means, right? So like you see things coming in and you're like, I don't make a quick decision on that. So people get away with some things, but ultimately everything catches up to you, right? And so as a company, nobody's going to be on you. You have to be on yourself, because otherwise you'll get yourself in so deep in certain things that there's really no recovery. Like you can't really recover your to some extent, you won't have a chance to really recover your reputation within the company, right? So that I would see that actually a downside and an upside. It does force you to think a little bit more. We have a systems mindset, and I would say we're constantly improving. So we look to see everybody be that way. So you don't just like, it's like a sports team. To have a sports team analogy, you could maybe get lucky and have a player have a streak of good luck, and you start winning. But that's not the way you really want to win, because you have such a good way of training people, and it's such a good way of creating a company culture that everybody works together, and that will create like a winning streak that doesn't matter about the ups and downs of the day. You're gonna be winning consistently. You think of like Coach John Wooden, who was the winningest college basketball coach of all times, and he would relentlessly focus on certain types of practice, focus on the basics, and there was a whole system around that allowed him to create real success. And his players benefited because they didn't just get the win as part of the team, they went on to be winning everywhere they went because they had the mindset, right? So I think we do think differently as a company, right? You won't find many companies that have a video like this being sent out systematically. Like everybody who signs up, they get this, right? Part of the training, so a downside is the nature of the business is it's in the field all day long. Taking somebody, especially like someone who's not trained, and ideally, probably, just to be 100% honest, you'd have somebody that would sit with you and show you everything. But the problem is a high-paid worker then gets no actual work done, and you have someone who really has not even learned how to move effectively, monopolizing the entire time while he's learning, and so he's getting a quarter of what he would anyways done, plus a whole nother worker not doing any work at all. And to do that for years is not something that anybody can finance. No company can actually give you that. You can do that a little bit more if you have a really narrow trade. But we're talking about handyman. There's a whole lot to learn. And so what we can do is provide, and this is something that we intend to do, we're building out now for every level, okay? Providing kind of a daily little mental stimulation of a video. Some of them are made internally. Some of them we just grab that we find like, this is a good video on YouTube. We expect you to listen through it, and we'd like to see it done daily, okay? And some of these are just general little things. It's a system for getting the information in. Each one of these videos will have some type of quiz with it. The quiz is not meant to really determine if you have mastered the knowledge. It's just a little step to increase engagement a little bit. Okay, so frankly, you could probably skip the video and take the quiz, but you're not going to get what you want out of it, right? So we're just trying to check, are you kind of engaging with this? And even if you're coming in this and we've hired you as a senior maintenance technician, what we want is you to still go through this. It might be some kind of basic. Some of the things will be basic. You probably learn something. But what we want is that everybody, as a system, can find in the organization is going to be able to have a basic level of information in their brain, right? That's common, right? So like you might have learned one way. You learned another way. Maybe one of you went to an actual trade school, right? Other people, they're starting as a maintenance apprentice, right? It's not the same as learning by doing, but it will give you some basis if you're the beginner for like some idea of when you actually run into one of these issues. You're like, oh yeah, I watched that video. You may want to go back and rewatch it, right? when you actually come to it. And you're going to start to get a network. So all learning happens as a kind of like spider web of connections. And it's so easy to start something and then never really grow. Okay? And sometimes it only takes a little bit of information just every day to grow. And it becomes this kind of just small little thing over time. And so what we want to do is just start that happening as soon as you start working with us. And whether you're experienced or not, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to be getting the same curriculum, right? And again, like I said, if you're really experienced, you're like, man, I kind of already know this. That's okay. I get it. I'm just asking you to kind of roll with us. Take this as a kind of knowledge building exercise as part of the organization, right? And the other thing is that as we go through this, we're going to offer certifications. It's going to be something that you put on your email signature. It's not like it's going to be an industry certification that everyone recognizes. But it's still that little extra thing like, hey, it's a feather under your belt, if nothing else within the organization, with an understanding that, like, yeah, I actually did go through all this, and that means something, right? It's not the same as having done a single thing for 20 years and being so intricately knowledgeable of everything that will happen, like within electrical or but that's not going to happen in this business, because this fundamentally is a handyman business. And so what we're trying to do is realizing that the weakness is a handyman, so you don't get to be an expert as much as you'd like in any single field. The positive is you get to be a generalist, right? You get to learn a lot. You'll know more than a lot of people if you work through what we talk about and you really seek to be an expert, right? And so, and that has its own benefits, right? When you really start to understand why things work, you don't have to be as much of an expert as you might think. You start to say, like, well, I can just look at that and see why it works, right? So ultimately, we're looking to develop people. We won't be able to necessarily have the expertise as deep. When we really need that, we can always go and get a tradesperson, right? That has that expertise. But hopefully you have enough to know when you don't have that expertise too. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So we're trying to grow your prosperity as a professional. Prosperity. Professional. Pro is in prosperity, right? We're trying to grow that. Also, one of the things that we're developing right now, as I speak, that's not 100%, but the Growing Prosperity Club. And what that really is every team member is required to go through this. The final curriculum is not all up at this moment, but every team member will be required to go through it. And basically, this is a coaching system where you go through and you create your life vision. You clarify it. Now you might be like, I don't really want to do that. That's okay. Go through the process anyways. You might find out that you find something about yourself that you didn't know. It might also force you to deal with some things that perhaps are not things you really wanted to deal with in your life. You prefer to ignore. But having done it, it's going to make you a more integrated person. Because the more split you are, the less you have wisdom. You just end up getting pulled everywhere. And oftentimes that's so much a part of who you are, you don't even realize that it's affecting you that way, right? And so you're looking at it from that perspective, you don't see the benefit yet. You go through it, it's only like, you know what, that does make sense, And it teaches you how to take what you'd like to be at the end of your life, the person, and start working on that person daily, right? That's really the process. And also as part of that program, we're kind of feeding you different ideas. Also, we have I subscribe to many kind of book feeds and information and learning. I always encourage people to be learning. There's always the a book a week club you could join. Like I sometimes read a couple books a week between speed reading and listening because honestly it's changed me fundamentally. Like I'm a different person. I can sit here and talk about this stuff without notes. all day long because for years I've been doing that, right? And that may not be your goal. That's fine. That's fine. Like I'm not trying to make all people like me, but regardless of whether you want to be like me or not, I'd be flattered if you did. But I want to see you be a professional version of you. That's what I want to see. That may not look like me. It shouldn't really. But ultimately, being engaged allows you to be successful. Living in the moment allows you to be successful. Studying, watching, seeing what's out there, comparing it to your own experience, continuing, moving through hard things, being willing to try something new, right? All those things are going to lead you to be more successful. And that's what we mean when we talk about growing prosperity. I look forward to having you on the team. Thanks for watching this video. Have a good day.